The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Effective immediately, you're terminated for incompetence. Samantha Drake leaned back in her Italian leather chair, arms folded smugly, her freshly manicured nails drumming against the sleek glass desk. She looked satisfied, no, delighted, with herself. The corners of her mouth curled into a rehearsed smirk. Her office, all sharp edges and expensive artwork, felt colder than usual. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I simply stood there, quiet as ever. That was my role. The quiet one in the room. The one no one noticed. The one who blended into beige walls and corporate spreadsheets. But that was exactly what I'd wanted. For 2 years now. Maddie, Samantha's voice turned syrupy and condescending. You really thought mediocrity could carry you forever? The Langston proposal was a mess. The client hated it. The board is furious. I mean, you do understand how this works, right? I didn't answer. She waited, savoring the silence like a fine wine. My silence was power, but she mistook it for weakness. Always had. What she didn't know was that the original Langston proposal had been flawless. I had spent weeks on it, deep data analysis, refined projections, original insights. But Samantha stole it. She pulled it from my desk the night before the client pitch and rebranded it under her name, only to slash and burn it with flashy changes that gutted the integrity of the entire plan. And now she was blaming me for the fallout. You'll be escorted out in 5 minutes. HR has been informed, she said with a tight smile, crossing her legs like a woman closing a deal. No reference, no recommendation. You won't work in this industry again. Ever. I calmly placed my work-issued laptop on her desk, flipped it open, and turned the screen toward her. Actually, I said, my voice calm and low, I think we should talk about the Langston proposal. Her smirk twitched. Excuse me? I have the original version right here, the one that was approved internally before you decided to rebrand it. Shall we compare the timelines? Her face dropped a degree, barely noticeable, but I noticed. That's confidential. You're no longer authorized. Oh, I am. I tapped the touchpad. You see, Samantha, Mr. Langston isn't just a client. He's a partner. More specifically, he's a partner of Sterling Horizon. Her eyes narrowed. Sterling Horizon? Ever heard of it? I asked, tilting my head slightly. The firm you've been desperately trying to court for a merger? That elusive investment powerhouse whose CEO never appears publicly? She froze. I clicked to another file. A press-ready bio appeared, complete with a professional headshot and credentials. My name, I said evenly, is Madeline Blake, founder and CEO of Sterling Horizon. Current market valuation, $2.4 billion. Her eyes widened in horror. No, that's not possible. You're from ops. I infiltrated your company 2 years ago, I continued, to evaluate whether Prescott and Sloan was a worthy candidate for acquisition. I wanted to see how you operate, not from a distance, but from within. Samantha's composure cracked like thin glass. Security, she snapped. There was a knock at the door. A guard peeked in. Miss Drake? He asked. Just a moment, I said, never breaking eye contact. We're finalizing her resignation. The color drained from her face. You can't do this, she whispered. I already have. As of this morning, Sterling Horizon owns 51% of Prescott and Sloan. The deal was finalized at 8:45 a.m. You'll find confirmation from the board in your inbox. I slid a document across the desk. Here's your resignation letter. Sign it, and I'll make sure your departure is quietly managed. No lawsuits, no press. Just vanish. Her hands trembled as she picked up the pen. You plotted this, she whispered. From the beginning. Since the day you stole my first project, I said flatly, and humiliated me in front of the entire strategy team. I stood up. You never once looked me in the eye, Samantha, always looking past me. You thought you were building an empire, but you didn't realize you were working for mine. She signed. I took the letter, nodded to the guard. Mr. Carter, please escort Ms. Drake to collect her belongings. The guard looked confused but obeyed. Samantha didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her silence said it all. I stepped out of the office, my office now, and walked down the corridor past cubicles and glazed eyes. Whispers spread like wildfire. That's when I saw Rachel, the intern who always stayed late, always got coffee, always got ignored. She looked at me, wide-eyed. They said, "You're the CEO of Sterling?" "Tell everyone," I said gently. "Mandatory staff meeting in 30 minutes. I have some announcements." "You're not leaving?" she asked, confused. I smiled. "No, Rachel. I'm just getting started." I walked down the hallway, slow and steady, my heels clicking against the tile. Everything I had endured, every eye roll, every stolen idea, every late-night redo of someone else's botched report had led to this moment. My phone buzzed. A text from my co-founder. "Did she sign?" I typed back, "She will. By the time the board meeting starts in 1 hour, the empire will be mine." And it was. The conference room buzzed like a hive of confusion and panic. Phones vibrated against the polished oak table, screens lit with texts, news alerts, and internal Slack messages, all echoing the same unbelievable rumor. Samantha Drake was gone, and the quiet girl from Ops, she was now commanding, the head of the table. I stood there for a moment, letting their eyes adjust to the new reality. Some stared, mouths slightly open. Others whispered behind their hands. A few avoided looking at me altogether, as if still trying to process how the woman who fetched her own coffee and sat silently in meetings had just unseated one of the most feared executives in the building. "Good morning," I said, my voice steady. "I know many of you have questions. You deserve answers." The projector screen behind me came to life, flashing the sleek branding of Sterling Horizon, its signature silver and deep blue logo glowing like a seal of reckoning. "My name is Madeline Blake," I continued, "CEO and founder of Sterling Horizon." A gasp rolled across the room. "I joined Prescott and Sloan 2 years ago under an alias, with the board's knowledge, to evaluate the firm's culture and leadership from the inside. This morning, Sterling Horizon finalized the acquisition of 51% of this company." Karen from PR dropped her stylus. Tom Carver, head of legal, and Samantha's longtime confidant, leaned forward, frowning. "You're saying the board approved an undercover operation? Are we seriously validating this circus?" I met his stare. "You're welcome to call it a circus, Tom. But you should know, I have full documentation from the board outlining my role, approved in a closed executive session 18 months ago, signed and time-stamped." He scoffed. "This is a hostile takeover." I smiled faintly. "Only if you're hostile." Laughter broke from the back, nervous but real. "Let's be clear," I said, clicking to the next slide. "I'm not here to humiliate anyone, but I am here to confront the truth." The screen showed a flowchart of projects from the last 2 years. Lines and arrows connected names to deliverables, then redirected credit to Samantha Drake. Project Redline. Northbridge, Langston, Polaris. Every single one had a lead analyst or strategist. Every single one was eventually redirected to Samantha's name before final presentations. How? I pointed to the next slide, a series of email exchanges. Subject lines, "Need your draft ASAP." "I'll take it from here. Let's clean this up before it goes to SL." Samantha's name at the top. Every time. "And who approved the credit changes?" I asked. Another slide, HR internal memos, all with one signature. Oliver Barrett, head of human resources. Oliver stood suddenly, his tie crooked from the heat of the moment. "I was following protocol. If someone higher up claims lead on a project, you bury complaints without investigating," I said, cutting him off, "including the ones from junior staff about overwork, stolen credit, and retaliation. I have timestamps. I have your notes. I have audio." The room fell silent again. I clicked again. Samantha's voice filled the room. "Greta, replace Maddie's name with mine. The Langston deck needs to show me as the origin point. She's just background. No one will question it." Gasps. A hand shot up. It was Daniel from accounts, someone who'd rarely spoken up in meetings. "Wait. That recording, how long have you been collecting all of this?" 2 years, I answered. 2 years of watching, listening, documenting. Tom stood again, red-faced. This is a public relations disaster. Not if we're honest about who we are, I replied, unflinching. Prescott and Sloan has potential, but potential that's been buried under ego, theft, and fear. Someone else spoke up. Greta, Samantha's executive assistant. She stood slowly, visibly shaken. Maddie, I didn't know the extent of it. She told me it was standard to rebrand decks, that no one needed to know where the ideas came from. She said, "It's how leadership works." I looked at her for a long moment. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. You were following orders. I understand that. But now you have a choice. I turned back to the room. You all do. I clicked again. A stark white slide appeared. Option 1. Cooperate, rebuild, and help reshape the firm. Option 2. Be exposed alongside everything Samantha built and buried. Nobody spoke. Then Mark, the IT lead, raised his hand. I want to stay, he said. This place, it was never supposed to feel like survival. I'd like to help fix that. Others followed. Karen from PR, Daniel, even Greta. Tom sat down, looking like he'd just aged 10 years. Then let's begin, I said. Town hall, 1 hour, everyone attends. The room slowly cleared out, murmurs following me like a shadow. Rachel lingered. You really are the CEO? I nodded. I thought I was just working late for an overambitious junior analyst, she said, smiling weakly. I smiled back. And now you're working for someone who finally sees you. As she turned to leave, I looked down at my phone. A new text lit up the screen, from a blocked number. You haven't won yet. You'll hear from my lawyers. Samantha. I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back. Let them come. I've built this empire quietly. Now I'll defend it loudly. I walked back into my new office, closed the door, and sat behind Samantha's old desk. Her perfume still clung to the leather chair. But this seat? It belonged to someone new now. The conference room filled faster than I expected. Less than an hour ago, I was still just a quiet observer in their eyes. Now, every glance felt like a recalibration. People whispered, shifted, some avoided my gaze entirely. Others stared like they were seeing me, really seeing me, for the first time. I stood at the front of the room, projector humming behind me. A tall window let in streaks of Manhattan sunlight, the kind that made glass skyscrapers look like altars to ambition. Today, we'd tear some of those down. For 2 years, I began. I watched, I listened, I documented. The room was dead silent. I saw who spoke up and who got silenced. I saw talent overlooked because it was quieter than the noise. I saw stolen work, stolen commissions, buried complaints, and I saw all of you, every one of you. I clicked the remote in my hand. The screen flashed to life. A spreadsheet appeared. Nothing fancy at first glance, until the names started shifting. Rows of original contributors to client projects, their credit lines struck out and replaced. One name kept reappearing, Samantha Drake. People in the room stiffened. Some leaned forward. Others exchanged glances. This is what your last 2 years looked like, I said. This is the cost of silence. Another click. A bar graph now, bonuses reassigned, performance scores altered, timelines manipulated. A red dot flashed next to every project with evidence of tampering. Project Langston, Polaris, Redline, Ridgeview. The pattern wasn't just unethical, it was systemic, approved and supported by the people in this very room. That was when Oliver, head of HR, stood up. You can't just accuse people in front of the whole company, he snapped. This is outrageous. I'm not accusing, I said, turning toward him. I'm showing you the documents, like this one. I clicked again. An internal complaint from a junior analyst named Jordan Nguyen appeared, dated 6 months ago. Subject, credit theft and toxic work environment. Status, reviewed and dismissed in 23 minutes. Reviewer, OB. The room shifted uncomfortably. You dismissed this without speaking to the analyst, I continued. You didn't even meet with the team lead. Why? I was told it was a misunderstanding, Oliver muttered. By whom? Silence. Another click. A transcript of a Slack exchange appeared on screen. Oliver. Jordan's just being sensitive. Samantha said she handled it. Close the case. Rachel, sitting near the front, slowly raised her hand. Her voice shook. I was Jordan's desk neighbor, she said. She stayed until 10 p.m. every night working on Polaris. Samantha presented it 2 days later, with her name on everything. Jordan cried in the stairwell for a week. She resigned 3 weeks later. Whispers swept across the room. Rachel stood fully now. She's telling the truth. I was one of the people they silenced. Samantha took my work on the Blake Tower bid. I have the drafts with my initials. They told me it was a team contribution, but my name didn't appear once. I looked at her, eyes steady. Rachel, as of this morning, you are promoted to junior strategist. Full pay grade, full credit. Retroactive bonus for Blake Tower. She froze. I mean you're finally getting what you earned. The room stayed still, but I saw it. That shift, that flicker, hope. Then a voice from the back, angry and loud. Mark, from Tech Ops, a known Samantha loyalist. So what now? He barked. You gonna fire all of us who ever followed orders? Is this your revenge tour? I let the moment breathe. No, I said softly. It's justice, and justice restores. It doesn't destroy. I walked slowly to the screen and clicked again. The new order. All projects from the past 2 years will be audited. Credit will be restored to rightful contributors. Retroactive pay for stolen bonuses will be processed within 30 days. An anonymous whistleblower portal is being launched. Zero tolerance policy for workplace retaliation. And let me be clear, I added, this is not optional. This is culture correction. Mark sat down, scowling. Others clapped, hesitantly at first. Then louder, fuller. I continued. Some of you were victims. Some were enablers. Some just stayed quiet to protect your jobs. This is your second chance. Use it. Greta, Samantha's former assistant, rose to speak. She looked hesitant, but firm. I saw everything. Every name she changed, every pitch she stole. I just didn't know who to tell. I thought if I said anything, I'd lose everything. You still can tell, I said gently. Come to my office after this. Let's start over. Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded. Rachel turned to look at her for the first time not as Samantha's girl, but someone who'd been trapped too. I could feel the entire company exhale. Not everything was fixed, not yet, but the rot had been exposed. And once truth is out, it doesn't go back underground. As the meeting wrapped up, I walked toward the door. My phone buzzed. A text, blocked number. You think you've won? Watch your back. I'm not done. SD. I stared at it, then smiled. Let her come. This time, I won't be quiet. The purge had begun. But the war was just getting started. It didn't take long for the first headline to hit. Silent CEO turns corporate giant upside down, Sterling Horizon's secret infiltration of Prescott and Sloan. I didn't flinch when I saw it. I'd expected the media storm. What I hadn't expected, at least not so quickly, was how fast Samantha Drake would crawl out from whatever rock she was hiding under. Within 24 hours, my legal team received an official complaint. Defamation, corporate espionage, breach of fiduciary duty. The accusations were heavy, designed to scare, designed to shake me, and it worked, for about 5 minutes. What do we do? Rachel asked, hovering at my office door. She looked more like an executive every day. New suit, straighter posture, voice stronger. But behind her eyes, she was scared. I didn't blame her. We stay calm, I said, and we stay honest. But Samantha wasn't playing fair. Later that morning, Tom Carver, the former head of legal and Samantha's closest ally, called for an emergency board session, claiming new evidence showed the acquisition had been orchestrated through unauthorized insider manipulation. And he was quoting from a leaked email thread, one that didn't exist, until someone created it. I met with Janelle Torres, my attorney and longtime confidant, in a private room on the 24th floor. Her style was sleek, her tone cool, and her instincts razor sharp. "She's playing dirty," Janelle said flatly, scanning the digital printouts. "If this leak gains traction, we could be looking at a federal investigation. You need to get ahead of this." "How?" I asked. "Fight narrative with narrative," she replied. "We go public with your story, on your terms. You've already built credibility with the internal reforms. Let's make sure the outside world hears that." I hesitated. Going public meant exposure. It meant interviews. It meant digging up not just Samantha's past, but mine. "I'll think about it," I said quietly, but time wasn't on my side. By mid-afternoon, news vans were circling the building. A reporter cornered Rachel on her lunch break, shoving a mic in her face, asking whether she was part of the conspiracy. She ran inside in tears. When she walked into my office, cheeks flushed, hands shaking, I stood up immediately. "They said I lied," she whispered, "that I was part of it all. I didn't, Maddie, I didn't." "I know," I said, gently guiding her to sit. "You told the truth, and now they're trying to drown it out." That's when it hit me. I wasn't just protecting my company anymore. I was protecting the people who had trusted me when no one else had. So I made the call. I would go public. We filmed the statement that night in a simple white room. No props, no filters. Just me, just truth. I looked into the camera and began. "My name is Madeline Blake. I'm the founder and CEO of Sterling Horizon. 2 years ago, I joined Prescott & Sloan as an analyst, not to climb, but to observe. I did so with full authorization from my board, with one goal, to determine whether this company was worth saving. What I found was not just mismanagement. I found exploitation, theft, intimidation, but I also found brilliance buried under fear, ideas without voices, potential without permission. I didn't steal this company. I earned it back for the people who built it, quietly, every single day." The video went viral in under 6 hours. Hashtags exploded across platforms. Hashtag Quiet Power, #Blake vs. Drake, #Silent CEO. Support poured in. Former employees, whistleblowers, even clients. But the war wasn't over. The next morning, Greta came to my office, pale and anxious. "I need to talk to you," she said, voice low, "about Samantha." I closed my laptop. "Go ahead." "She's threatening my family, my sister. She said if I testify for you, she'll leak photos of her from college, stuff she never meant to be public. She found them through her PR contacts." I clenched my jaw. "Greta, why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was afraid," she whispered. "I still am." I paused, then stood. "You don't have to be." I opened a folder on my desk. Inside was a formal immunity agreement, backdated to 2 weeks ago, with full legal protection and a 3-year contract offer for a new role in compliance. Greta blinked. "I'm offering you a way out," I said, "not because you were perfect, but because you came forward." Tears filled her eyes. "I'll testify." The deposition happened the next day. Janelle sat beside me as Greta provided sworn statements, voice steady, tears flowing. She handed over voice recordings of Samantha boasting about stealing projects, laughing about dumbing things down for the board, and mocking employees behind their backs. One quote burned into my brain. "These people are pawns. You take their work, dress it up, and call it leadership. They're lucky to have someone like me guiding them." The case collapsed. Samantha's lawyers pulled the lawsuit quietly 3 days later. No apology, no admission, just silence. And then, vanishing. Her LinkedIn disappeared. Her condo listed. Her name removed from Prescott & Sloan's archives. She was erasing herself before the world could do it for her. Later that week, Rachel stopped by my office again. She had something in her hand, a small framed photo of the strategy team from last year. "You're in the back," she said, smiling. "Blurry, barely visible, but you were there." I looked at the photo. My old self, hair tucked, blazer stiff, eyes empty. I barely recognized her. "I'm not here to be anyone's savior," I said softly. "I'm just trying to be the leader I never had." Rachel nodded. "That's exactly what makes you one." That night, I received an unexpected email from someone I hadn't spoken to in over a decade, Daniel Cordell, my father's former business partner. The subject line, "You did it." The message was short. Your father never figured out how to lead with both strength and softness, but you did. You didn't just fix a company, you rewrote a legacy. I sat there a long time, the glow of the screen washing over my desk. I thought of my father, his brilliance, his downfall, his silence. He built something powerful, but I made it human. 6 months later, the name on the building had changed. What was once Prescott and Sloan now gleamed under bold black letters. Blake and Horizon Partners. New name, new leadership, new culture. But the bones? Still the same. That was intentional. The building stood as a reminder of everything we had survived and everything we were becoming. Rebuilding wasn't easy. I never pretended it would be. The aftermath of Samantha's collapse left gaps. People, policies, trust. My team and I had to work from the inside out, auditing every process, rehiring with care, restructuring incentives, and, hardest of all, retraining minds. But the results? Revenue up 40%, employee satisfaction at an all-time high, staff turnover down by 70%, and perhaps most satisfying of all, dozens of voices that were once silenced, now leading projects, running meetings, mentoring new hires. This was no longer a place built on fear. It was one built on integrity, creativity, and trust. That morning, I sat at my desk, the same one Samantha once ruled behind with manicured fingers and a glass smile. I had kept the desk, and the artwork, the soft leather chair, the obsidian paperweight, not because I liked them, but because they reminded me that power was only dangerous in the wrong hands. A knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. "Come in," I called. A young woman stepped inside, eyes wide, posture uncertain, clutching a resume like it was her last line of defense. She couldn't have been older than 22. Her blazer was a little too big, her shoes scuffed at the toe, but her gaze was steady. "Miss Blake?" she asked. I smiled and stood. "Please, call me Maddie. You must be Jasmine." "Yes, ma'am. Thank you for taking the time." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Let's chat." She sat down slowly, her fingers tightening on the edge of the seat. "This is my first real interview," she confessed. "My professors told me I'd be lucky to even get a call back from Blake and Horizon, but here I am." I tilted my head. "So tell me, Jasmine, why us?" She hesitated for a beat. "Because I read about what you did, how you transformed this place. Everyone I've talked to says it feels different here. Safe, fair." She drew a breath. "And because I've worked for someone like Samantha Drake before." I leaned forward, my interest piqued. "Go on." "She was a department head at my internship. She took credit for every good idea and blamed us for every mistake. I spent 6 months writing her reports while she went to networking events. No one said anything. Everyone was scared." Her voice cracked slightly, but she held it steady. "I don't want to feel like that again. I want to work somewhere where quiet people aren't stepped on just because they're not loud." I nodded slowly, letting her words settle. "You know," I said, standing and walking to the window, "I kept this office exactly as Samantha had it. The desk, the layout, even the wall art." Jasmine turned to look around, confused. "Why?" "Because sometimes," I said, still facing the skyline, "we need to be reminded that appearances can lie. Power doesn't always come with kindness, and silence doesn't always mean weakness." I turned back to her. "Samantha never saw me for who I was because she was too busy looking down on everyone she thought was beneath her. But I built this company from that silence, brick by brick." Jasmine sat a little straighter. "The position is yours if you want it," I said. Her jaw dropped. "Wait, seriously?" "Seriously, but understand this. Here we don't reward ego, we reward integrity, effort, thoughtfulness." "I can give you that," she whispered. I smiled. "I know." Later that night, I was walking through the 3rd floor when I passed the new wall of recognition. A glass installation showcasing employee achievements, new project wins, client testimonials, and photos of every team member promoted since the rebuild. Rachel's name gleamed at the top, now Director of Strategic Growth. Greta was there too, head of compliance, leading internal audits with a vengeance that made even me flinch. And now, soon, Jasmine's name would join theirs. I paused for a long moment, taking it all in. That's when my phone buzzed. One new email from an address I hadn't seen in a while. S. Drake, legacyholdings.org. Subject, I hope you're happy. Message, you ruined everything I built, everything I bled for. I hope it was worth it. I stared at it for a moment. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could have responded. I could have reminded her that she had ruined herself, that arrogance had always been her downfall. But instead, I closed the laptop. Because success? Success was louder than any response I could ever give. The next morning, headlines flooded the business world. Blake and Horizon secures $400 million urban renewal contract, praised for transparency, inclusion, and leadership. From the shadows, how Madeline Blake quietly became one of Wall Street's most trusted voices. I walked into the office, greeted by nods, real smiles, a sense of purpose humming through every hallway. People no longer whispered in corners. They collaborated in open spaces. They didn't just work here. They belonged. As I stepped into my office, Jasmine was already at her desk, focused, jotting notes on a legal pad. She looked up and smiled nervously. I returned it with warmth. "You're early," I said. She blushed. I didn't want to miss anything. "You won't," I replied, and closed the door behind me. I turned to the full-length mirror near the window. My reflection looked back at me, not the invisible girl from Ops, not the strategist who played a long game, not the CEO who burned an empire to the ground, but the woman who built a better one. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. It's about building something stronger in its place, so undeniable, so unshakable, that those who once dismissed you become footnotes in your success story. They used to call me invisible. Now I'm the one they all see.